Hey everybody, Zack here with RevZilla and welcome to another episode of Daily Rider. We're going to learn about a new motorcycle today, just like we always do. And our guest is Honda's CBR500R. That is a 471cc parallel twin wrapped up in some very sporty bodywork, all for about $7,000. What do we think? Good daily rider? It doesn't really look like one, does it? But you know, they always say there's more to the cover than meets the book, or whatever. Anyway, let's take a ride. Okie dokie team, here we have it, CBR500. Redesign in 2019, I believe. So you're looking at a little bit sportier face here. Braking hardware is not super impressive, just a big Nissan caliper with one rotor, although I think it's a 320 mil rotor, if memory serves. So that's a pretty big disc for a bike this size, although there's only one of them. Let me see, what else? Oh yeah, tire sizes are surprisingly large. So this is a 120/70 front, so that's a full-size front tire. I mean, that's the same size front tire that you get on a Panigale or an RSV4 or a CBR1000 or whatever. And the rear tire, I think, is the 160. Is that right? Yeah, 160/60. So basically it's kind of like full-on middleweight size tires, if not full-size motorcycle tires. If I'm lucky, I'll remember to talk about that while we're actually riding. But I think the tires might be a little bit bigger, wider than they need to be. Pretty heavily scooped seat here, and that leads to a fairly low seat height, although a little bit higher than it used to be. Okay, I think that's a pretty good rundown. Spark this bad boy up. Everybody cover your ears. This thing's vicious. All right, CBR500. Here we go. All right. Off we go on Honda CBR500R. That's a lot of R's. Historically, I think a single R on the dirt side anyway, like a CRF450R is the race bike. 250R is the race bike. Is that right? I don't know my dirt bikes that well, but I'm pretty sure that's right. On the street side, a double R is typically the more aggressive model. So CBR600RR, CBR1000RR, and of course now CBR1000RR-R. They added another R. So the point is, CBR500R sounds racy, but actually in Honda nomenclature, not quite enough R's to really be super aggressive. But anyway, you probably tuned in to learn more about the bike than how many R's are in the name, I assume. So we can move on from R's to actual data. So that low seat that I was talking about is 30.9 inches from the ground, so just under 31 inches, which is pretty reasonable. I got a fair number of questions on Instagram about how this bike fits taller people, and as we're coming up to yet another red light, we can discuss that. I'm 6'2", and it is just downright easy for me to flat foot. You can see I got a nice bend in my knee. The bike is extremely approachable. The seat height did go up a little bit, I believe, from the original model, which was updated in 18 or 19, I think. So that's something to note, but still very easy bike to swing a leg over. As for other stats, I said a 471cc engine, should round up to 500. There's no claimed horsepower number from Honda for this bike. Dyno numbers for the outgoing model, though, about 45 horsepower and about 30 foot-pounds of torque. It holds 4.5 gallons of gas, which is pretty good fuel capacity for a little bike like this. And the last stat I think we usually talk about is weight. The claimed weight for this bike is around 420 pounds. I think it depends on the year. Some of them are 419. Some, I think the 2021 model is 423. I just put this bike with a full tank of gas on the Daily Rider scales this very morning, and it was 426 pounds. So two things there. One, Honda is very honest about their weights. See, because this bike's only whatever, maybe 5 pounds heavier than they claim, which historically is not the case. Sometimes manufacturers, especially some European ones, are very aggressive with how they how much they claim a bike weighs. The other thing to note about that weight is that it's pretty high. 426 pounds is a lot of weight for a bike that's ostensibly for beginners or just supposed to be small. The good news is it's got that nice low seat height, so it's very approachable, and it in general is mild and gentle and not intimidating in a way that you might expect a bike that is well over 400 pounds to be. All right, we can talk about Freeway Ergonomics, which in general are quite good. Actually, come to think of it, we didn't talk about actual ergonomics. Usually I've done that by now. So the CBR500R is quite comfortable. I did talk about how the ground is nice and easy to reach from the seat for someone who's 6 feet tall especially, but for anyone really. And in general, the bike is a lot less aggressive to sit on than it is to look at. It looks pretty sporty, like I said, but the handlebars, although they are mounted lower than they were on the pre-updated bike, they're still very reasonably set. I'm sort of like, I don't know, I'm about as upright as I would be on a hyper naked, probably on like a, I don't know, a Tuono or something like that. And there's quite a bit of legroom actually, because the foot pegs are set fairly low. So yeah, it's a pretty comfortable place to sit. The fairing does not really take much wind away from your body. I mean, it takes it away from everything below my sternum, kind of like away from my stomach. Don't expect a lot from the CBR500's wind protection. I did have a question on social media that said something to the effect of, is this bike trying to be a naked bike? The answer is, yeah, I don't know if it's trying to be a naked bike, but in some ways it is like that. It's more upright, it's more reasonable than an actual sport bike, and it means that practically day to day it's going to be quite a bit more comfortable while still looking kind of racy and sporty, which to some people is important. One thing I wanted to point out while we're at basically freeway speeds is the cruising RPM, which right now, so let's go 65 or 70, something like that, just for a second. So you can see it's between 5 grand and 6 grand, like low 5,000s. When you get up to about 6 grand, it gets a little bit buzzy, and that's on account of the 180-degree firing order, this parallel twin, which means the pistons are going up and down opposite each other, and it creates a kind of a vibration in this engine, which is why the foot pegs are covered in rubber. To try and keep the vibes down for the rider. This section of bridge is usually a little bit bumpy. Again, if you remember the Triumph Rocket 3 daily rider that we did, it was rocking my spine a little bit. This bike does not have a ton of suspension travel, like 4.5 inches or something like that, but it's quite supple. It's pretty gentle. Again, it goes along with the rest of the vibe of the bike, which is just calm and not particularly high strung. Oh, yeah, as I come up to this red light here, I realized we didn't talk about mirrors. These mirrors are good. Honda mirrors are typically quite good, although they're oddly far away. So when I sit here in this position, for example, if I reach out like this, I can't touch the mirror with my hand. So I have to reach forward to grab it, which means it's a long way from my eyes, which means you inherently have a little bit less field of view when you look in the mirror than behind you. It also has a pretty crisp view of my elbow, annoyingly. I basically angle them out so I can see cars next to me a little bit better. Yeah, they're good mirrors, but as with most sport bikes, they're basically in the wrong place just for the sake of looking a little bit cooler than they might otherwise. All right, enough about mirrors. Let's get our neighborhood on. Also, you can see that little trot down the freeway. My average fuel economy went from 60 to 65 for this tank, which we're at 18 miles so far. Okay, we got one footless stop in the books. This is anyone new to Daily Rider, this is usually where we test street manners of the motorcycle, clutch feel, throttle response, and general balance of the bike at low speed. And the CBR500, I have a feeling, is going to be quite good for that. So we got one stop sign with no feet down in the books. Let's see if we can do 2. Gotta stay focused, gotta stay focused. Don't let me down, CBR500. Yeah. Real good balance. It feels like it's got a nice low center of gravity. And like I said before, the tires are a little bit wider than they need to be. Probably might help in this situation a little bit, just having a little bit flatter contact patch than other bikes this size. But basically, it's just a very composed bike. Throttle response is pretty good. It's a little herky-jerky on-off, but in general, not too bad. The other thing I'd mention about this bike is the clutch. is incredibly light to pull. I think that's good as a bike that is aimed at people who might not have a lot of riding experience. But oh, I screwed that one up. We didn't get that footless stop in the books. But in general, quite nice. It's almost too light for me. Like it always takes me a couple miles to get used to this clutch because it's so light. Last stop sign in the neighborhood. Let's go 3 for 4, shall we? Come on, CBR, we can do this. Yes. Yeah, very, very, very good bike around town. As we wait for this red light, I'm going to slow down a little bit, give you an idea of how gentle and calm this bike is around town. We're going to let it idle in first gear. We're going up a slight hill, to be fair, but here it goes. 4 miles an hour. Clutch out. I mean, it's such a polite, gentle machine. It's really remarkable. That's basically what happens if you put a Grom in first gear. Managed to have the same kind of tractability with this bike, which I think is impressive. Those big reindeer butt looking at me. That's kind of unpleasant. Thank you. So you probably got the idea at this point. The bike is extremely polite and gentle. I don't have anything else to say about it for bopping around town except that it's excellent. I think that you would like it. Wrap. Ooh, I hit the rev limiter. I mean, not that surprising. I know better than to rev up a Honda Twin like that. But yeah, it has a pretty low red line, 8,500 RPM, something like that. So when you compare it to something like the Ninja 400, which revs way up into 5 digits, you know, it is a pretty tame engine. Good grunt down low, but yeah, not much going on up top. All right, here we go, trundling through Lover's Lane. I do have some passenger accommodations to report for you. I took my lady for a ride on this thing. And in general, she says legroom is pretty poor. The seat is not bad. She did like that she was perched up kind of high so she could see over the top of my helmet, which will vary depending on the height of the passenger, of course. But yeah, in general, I think she kind of gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, maybe. Like, not bad for what it is, but in general, not very comfortable. She rated it a little bit better than the MT-09, which she was horrified by. She said that was very uncomfortable, and she was surprised because it looks like, you know, it looks like a naked bike. Looks like it'd be kind of comfortable, but passenger accommodations were terrible. But CBR500, surprisingly good, if not predictable. Ah, jeez, some crozum. I don't know if did I hit that bird? I think it got away. I really didn't think it was going to keep flying at me, and then it did. Whew, very exciting. And speaking of exciting, here we are on our twisty road. It's good on a twisty road, as the name would suggest. And you know, the more aggressive you get, the more it starts to show its true colors of being more of a sporty styled city bike than an actual true raw to the bone sport bike. But I really can't complain much. What I can complain about is this enormous truck, coincidentally on the same schedule as I am, going down the twisty road. Oh, the other fell on a Grom, also waiting for the truck to get ahead so that he can slay the twisties. Happy gromming, friend. Yeah, here we go, cruising through some curves at faster than box truck speed anyway. The one thing I would say about this bike, where it has an advantage over the Ninja 400, is it does have full-size tires and a full-size curb weight. In general, that's a bad thing because you always want a bike to be lighter and more agile. Where it's good, I think, is the transition to a full-size bike from this, whether it's to a Ninja 650 or CBR 650 or a Z650 or you get it 650 or anything bigger than that. Other bikes might feel really small and featherweight and be a kind of a bizarre transition from the smaller class to a larger class. A bike like this will feel a little bit more natural. You'll be used to having 400 pounds under you and the feel of slightly wider tires that need a little bit of body English to hold them in a curve, and the chassis will respond in a way that's maybe a little bit more familiar, someone like that. All that being said, if you actually want to do a track day or do something truly sporty, what you need is a Ninja 400, not a CBR 500. Or a Grom, obviously, as this guy is demonstrating. He's having fun on 2 wheels, and I like it. I don't know, I'm not trying to make fun of him. I like what he's doing here. He's got his taking a Grom up on a twisty road. Go, little guy, go! I mean, I don't know. Motorcycles are fun. On the topic of engine character, I do a lot of talking on Daily Rider about how the 270 parallel twin is more like a V-twin, and how I like that, and how I don't like conventional parallel twins. And now I'm finally riding a conventional parallel twin, and you might be waiting for me to say that I don't like it. Well, you are in luck. I don't like it. I mean, it's fine. It works fine. It's fine. It's just buzzy, and it makes a weird, like, cheap toy kind of noise when you accelerate instead of making a thump like a twin. It just that kind of I just don't like it. But that's my personal opinion. Objectively, this engine is quite good. Makes good strong power, accelerates well, satisfying to use. You get tactile feedback in the bars, like it vibrates as you accelerate, which is kind of satisfying. It's just not my cup of tea. I think the sort of like smooth, bassy thump is a little bit more interesting and fun to use than the classic 180 firing order of the parallel twin. Let's see if we can back it in. Can we back it into this red light here? Sort of. You can't shut off ABS. So yeah, no backing it in. But, you know, that's okay. Look at that dash there. Speed, and other pertinent info. Trip meters down here. You cycle through with these buttons here through the different data points. Nothing terribly interesting here. It does have a digital tachometer, which I think is kind of interesting. So if you actually want to know precisely how high the engine's revving, you can check in there. When it's getting hit with sun, it is quite crisp and clear, and the contrast is really high. It's not great at night or when it's dark or when the sun is kind of coming at your face instead of at the screen. It's a sort of an entry-level bike, entry-level dash. We go on to Vermont Street. Get a little beep for the 802. Been a minute since we gave Vermont Street a beep, so felt like we were due. And still got to talk about brakes. Where are my red lights at? Been catching red lights all day. Now when I got to talk about brakes, I got no red lights. Only green lights? Jeez. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about brakes as we turn off for our dirt long cut. Hoss on the brakes a little bit. Brakes are pretty good. They're very mild. The feel is decent considering it's only one rotor up there and it's pretty mild. Stay tuned, the pads are very much not aggressive. So the bite is very soft when you first pull on the lever. But again, for a bike aimed at people who may be learning how to ride a motorcycle, you know, pretty reasonable. Anyway, here we go. On to the dirt road, out to your camping site, or just because you want to ride this bike in the dirt. What is it like? We're about to find out. And wouldn't you know it, it's perfectly reasonable. Look at this thing go. Trundle, trundle. No big deal. The big street tires are a little weird in the dirt. They kind of like move around a little bit. You could ride this thing to the top of Alaska if you wanted to. This is basically what the road looks like to the top of Alaska. All right, let's hit our little jump here. Yeah. Oop, I left my blinker on. Yeah, not bad at all. And can you get a little Swayze if you want to? No traction control. Not a bad little machine for a dirt road, turns out. Okay, time to see if this thing wheelies, right? Here we go. Oh, look at that go, man. Let's try one more. Let's try it in second gear. I've only actually done first gear once so far. No, second gear is not happening. It'll do a little first gear wheelie, and if you want more than that, you gotta be better at wheelies than I am. Which, you know, is very possible. All right. Normally we talk about bike comparisons, that kind of thing. I didn't have time this time. Lots of good questions came in through Instagram. We're going to do Instagram questions once I skip down the freeway here, and then we'll put this sucker on the Daily Rider leaderboard, and then you can get on with the rest of your 2021. There we go. Wish me luck. I cut through some fast sweepers here. Wow. That's pretty sporty. It's pretty fun. Okie doke. One last chance to back it in. Yeah, there we go. That's a pretty good one, actually. Nice and smooth. Just got to be pretty idiotic with the clutch. Anyway, not a pretty fun bike, though. All things considered. Now we can take a listen. I don't know. It doesn't inspire me. Sorry. Still a good machine, as we discussed. Okie doke. All right, time for some Instagram questions. First one I saved here. It's not actually a question from Instagram at all, so joke's on you. This is the miles per gallon wording from the Honda website. It says 72 mpg is what they say for fuel mileage. Your actual mileage will vary depending on how you ride, how you maintain your vehicle, weather, road conditions, tire pressure, installation of accessories, cargo, rider and passenger weight, blah, blah, blah. You get it. The point is, you can get probably 50 or 55 with this bike, or you can get 70 or 75, and it will depend on how you ride. Our trip, what did our trip end up at, actually? Yeah, so I mean, we're only 35, 40 miles into this tank, but 66. Which I don't know. That's the bike's computer. That's not an actual calculation. But you know, that's what you'll see. And I want to take some of the pressure away from putting too much weight on a fuel mileage figure that someone else got with the bike. It's going to depend on how you ride. Every motorcycle, but especially ones like this with mid-size engines that can be efficient or can have their necks wrong. First up, another Zack. What's up, Zack? Zack asks, "Is it better than a Ninja 400?" Okie dokie. Very, very good question, because that's what this bike competes against most directly, I would say. The Ninja 400 is a slightly different animal. It's a little bit more highly strung. You got to rev it a little bit more to get the power out of it. It does rev much, much higher. It's more performance oriented in general. It's also much smaller. The tires are narrower. It's quite a bit lighter. So is it better than a Ninja 400? It's sort of larger, more comfortable. The suspension's a little bit softer, so that'll be good. But if you're into performance riding, if you want to go to track days, you want to do something like that, then you're definitely going to want a Ninja 400, because you're going to want the lightweight, and you're going to want the big aftermarket that supports it, the race classes that support it, that kind of thing. So for performance riding, Ninja 400. For a general street bike, something that maybe feels more substantial, might be better on a long road trip, CBR500. Hope that helps answer your question, Zach. Thank you for your question. The Supple Gunner asks, though they are in different classes, the prices are similar enough. This or the MT-07 for the fun factor. I feel like this is a pretty pricey bike for only 500 cc's. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, better part of $7,000 for this sucker here. And you can get an MT-07 for something like that, right? To answer your question, the MT-07 is much, 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 excuse me, need to take a breath, much more fun than this bike in general. That doesn't make it better for every person in you know, forever. Like someone might want the bodywork and the size of this bike, but if it's me, MT-07 all the frickin' way. The Honda Rebel 500 asks, can it haul Christmas trees? That's because it's in reference to a CTXP episode where we hauled Christmas trees out of the woods on a Honda Africa Twin and a Triumph Scrambler XE. Quick plug for that. If you haven't watched it, it's on the RevZilla YouTube channel. We spent a lot of time and money on it, so please go watch it. It's kind of a good time. Thanks for the little plug there, Honda Rebel 500. Appreciate it. SV Rider _ Malaysia, maybe? You from Malaysia? That'd be cool. Anyway, is there any huge difference between the CBR500R and the CBR650R? Yes, sir. The CBR650 is a 4-cylinder engine, much bigger, much heavier. It does have more performance, but in some ways, the overall character of the bike is similar to this. It is sort of street oriented and gentle and a little bit mild for a 4-cylinder bike that has a 650cc engine. So in some ways the idea behind it is similar, but it's a much different bike as far as engine character and as far as weight and overall performance. So I hope that helps. Pence Devon asks, would it be good to step up to this after a 300 or just go to the 650? Right. This is a good question. I would get this instead of a 300. If you feel like you're ready for it, if you feel like you want a slightly larger bike. If you have a 300 and you think you're ready to step up to a slightly larger bike, this is a step up, and you could do that, but I wouldn't bother. I'd go straight to a 650. I think you'll be fine. Provided you feel very confident on your 300 and you think like, man, I just want a bigger bike. I think a step up to a 650 is totally fine. I see this as a place to start that is above a 300 as far as weight and torque and that kind of thing. Keen Jeff asks, which CB500 variety would you purchase? Were you in the market for one? Very good grammar, Keen Jeff. You might say your grammar is keen, as well as your Jeff. I would get a CB500X, the sort of adventure one, because that is a sweetheart of a bike, and it's so capable. On a twisty road, you're not really going to go much slower on a CB500X than you are on a CB500F or a CBR500R, because they're all kind of mild and gentle. Whereas the CB500X is upright, it's got good wind protection. You can get hard luggage from the factory. I don't know, it's got lots of options. That's the one that I would get. Plus it fits a taller frame, such as mine, a little bit better. Johnny Crow 1 says, is it daily rider friendly? Well, if there's one place to find out, Johnny Crow, holy smokes, you came to the right place. More specifically, good commute ergos, fuel mileage, maintenance, ? Yeah, so all those things, I think you're in pretty good shape, right? It's a Honda, so you can probably ride it forever without changing the oil if you wanted to. Not that I would ever condone that. Don't do that, of course, but it will probably be stone reliable. The fuel mileage will be decent. And yeah, the commute ergos are good, as we discussed. So I think if you want a sporty looking bike, but you want to be comfortable on a daily ride, this is a great option. Okay, last question. Duke Dude 98 asks, is it really better than Ninja 400 or RC390? Right, so we already talked about the Ninja 400 and how the Ninja 400 is different. The KTM RC390 is quite aggressive, actually. When you sit on it, the seat is high, the foot pegs are high, the handlebars are low. It is a true small sport bike. However, you do pay the price. It's much less comfortable. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that the KTM RC390 does not have the same reputation for reliability, shall we say, as a Honda, a Kawasaki, or a Yamaha. Thank you, as always, for asking so many good, intelligent questions. Give me a good springboard to talk about the different types of environments you could ride this bike in and that kind of thing. Bear with me here. We're going to put the sucker on the Daily Rider leaderboard right now. Hi, everybody. Here we go. Honda CBR 500 back here at Daily Rider headquarters. It's a Honda, so we're going to need a red magnet for this sucker. Now it's time to talk about dollars and cool. $7,000 approximately for a Honda CBR 500. So it's going to be down here somewhere in this neighborhood, quite a bit cheaper than versus 650 or T7. You know, those are sort of high 4-digit bikes. More expensive than Dave the Gixxer and the Yamaha MT-03. Quite a bit less performance than Dave the Gixxer too, if we're honest. Although CBR 500 does have, you know, a warranty and mirrors and factory paint. Anyhow, now it's time to talk about cool. Is the CBR 500 cool? No, it's not, is it? It's a sport bike, which ostensibly is cool, and it does look handsome. I think the styling is quite good, but no, it's not cool. It's gonna fall a little bit south of the center of the cool pole, you might say. I don't know if that makes sense. Cool equator. I'm losing it, man. So we're going to be somewhere in this neighborhood. I think CBR 500 goes right around here. It's a little more expensive than that, a little bit. Yeah, so something like that. Yeah. So it falls in a place in the chart that's a little bit uncharted, you might say. So we got the pin up there. We can jot down the name, and the CBR 500 will live on. Honda CBR 500R. It makes too much sense, is the problem. It's practical and good. And that doesn't usually make for a cool bike. So we got RZ350, a 2-stroke from the 80s, very cool. Surprisingly practical for what it is, really, but still, Doesn't make a ton of sense. Triumph Daytona 765, doesn't make a ton of Ducati Street Fighter V4S, doesn't make a ton of sense, but they're cool. Aside from the BMW R18, which doesn't make any sense and is also not cool. That's actually probably pretty unfair. And why isn't the Triumph Rocket 3 higher up? We got some work to do in 2021, people. Stay tuned. Now we're going to talk about where the CBR500 falls on the leaderboard, the big kahuna. What do we think? So other sport bikes, we got Gixxer Dave, which is a terrible motorcycle, but a lovely friend. Realistically, a Gixxer 1000 would be in this sort of neighborhood with the Triumph Daytona 765 Moto 2. That's another sport bike. Above here, we got Naked Bikes, of course, Street Fighter, and MTO3. And that's where the CBR is going to fall. Somewhere, it's better than a Daytona for sure. Is it better than a Yamaha MTO3? What do we think? Probably. Yeah. It's got some wind protection, got all the same options. Yeah, it's probably a little better than the Yamaha. Is it better than Ducati Street Fighter? I couldn't even say it with a straight face. Okay, here we go. Here's where it lands, just above the Yamaha MT-03 on the Daily Rider leaderboard. A fine place to sit, actually. There are not a lot of other bikes we've ridden that have been better than the CBR500 on the Daily Ride. So respect, man. Another bike in the books, another bike on the chart, another ride with you all, my lovely friends. I hope you had fun as usual. I hope you learned something, and I very much hope that I'll see you next time on Daily Rider. Well, I'm stuck at this intersection now. I won't be leaving. Please send help. A helicopter, anything really. Food, some provisions perhaps. I'll be here until mid-2022, it seems.